We're beginning today's lecture. Actually, we never really think about time seriously enough. A woman, for instance, might think she can have children later. I can live a little now. It's not necessary to have kids when you're young. Then when she decides to have them later, she can't, or she has an unhealthy child. And she wonders, why did this happen? Why did it turn out this way? Similarly, it's common now to harvest green tomatoes and let them ripen on their own. But they can't be as tasty as those picked at the right time. We don't pay serious attention to the fact that time is the key factor. Tomatoes can be of a very good variety. They can be really tasty, free from nitrates. But if they're picked just a bit too early, they won't have full strength. They won't carry strength in them. Even if they get ripe, they won't be of much use, or there will be little benefit from them. This means that time is the key factor. Time is more important than... So right now there are so many dietary recommendations. There's that raw food diet and other dietary systems. They're all fine. But all these systems don't take time into account. So now we're going to talk about what's more important. There is an ancient Vedic wisdom that says time, place, circumstances. Time is the greatest force that exists in the universe. Time is the force that moves the whole universe in the orbit of life. All the objects of the universe move from youth to old age. This movement happens in cycles. Our body, the cells of our body, the atoms of our body, our mind, our intelligence, our ego, the false ego, that is the material substance. All this is being moved forward by the force of time. We have a life orbit or a cycle that we need to live through in this life. Then comes the next cycle. Life in the material world is cyclical, and this cycle cannot be changed. I've heard some Ayurveda lectures saying, look, we apply cream to the skin and it rejuvenates. That's not possible. Skin cannot become younger. It might be wrinkle-free and so on, but the person will still die at the same time they are meant to die. No one can overcome time. It's impossible. The skin may be wrinkle-free, but that doesn't mean it's young. When a woman is of a certain age, her skin is of that age. It can be preserved. We don't realize that we age prematurely. And we age prematurely because we live incorrectly. Right now, at this moment, we should be living for up to 120 years. The Vedas contain knowledge about how long one should live at each point in time. And with every century, the lifespan decreases. We should live for 120 years, but we can't. Naturally, if one starts to live correctly, their skin gets a bit better. Everything improves a bit, the body improves, but this doesn't mean it rejuvenates. It just becomes normal. For example, it's like when a person gets sick and loses weight and then returns back to normal. That doesn't mean they've become younger. They've just recovered, returned to normal. So, time is the greatest force, and that's what we're going to talk about now. Next was place. What is a place? Time, place, circumstances. What is a place? Most of you don't know any of these factors. But the Vedas say that without the knowledge of these things, it's simply impossible to live, impossible to be happy. So what is a place? It's a location, correct. What does that mean? There is a person's location, there is the space in which we live. It turns out that the location, for example, if you place a person and a monkey in the same spot, you can't say they live in the same place. Why? Firstly, they perceive the world differently. Different forces act on them. That's the first reason why you can't say they live in the same place. And the second reason is that the Vedas define the concept of a place of life much deeper than we can imagine. It turns out we have a spiritual nature, and our place of life is our physical body in which we live. So, time means that everything must be done at the right time, and place means that everything must be done in accordance with the human body. For example, modern scientists say that meat, high protein, high calorie food is good for you. If you eat it, you get proteins, amino acids. It's all good for you. But the Vedas say it's not good for the human body. It's good for animals, but not for the human body. Because in humans, there is one substance that is ruined by meat. This substance is called intelligence. Animals don't have it. When a person eats meat, they are constantly in a state of depression and don't understand why life is so hard for them. They think it's hard to live because everyone around is bad. But as soon as they stop eating meat, a couple of years pass, and their life changes dramatically. It becomes much easier to live. Watch this. Those who have really felt this themselves will now raise their hands, and everyone else won't believe it. Raise your hands. Who has felt it? There. And the rest won't believe it. Those who have never felt it. Because to believe in this, you need to feel it. Understanding what the human body is, the place we live in, is a very important piece of knowledge, one that needs to be studied right away. Later will be too late. Because a person who doesn't study it can't get everything right in their life. Next, circumstances, the last factor. These are all the diets that you choose, how to eat, which diet to follow, by which system, without any consideration of either the time or the place. You just choose products, dishes, and so forth. These are the circumstances. This is the last factor. If you eat at the wrong time, even if the food suits you very well, this diet will still be deficient and will completely ruin your health. That's 100% guarantee, and I will prove this to you during the lecture. Next, if you eat food that is not suitable for the human body, that is without taking into account the place you live in, no matter how good the food seems. Meat, for instance, is very tasty for you. You like it, but it will be the end of you. There will be no happiness, no health, because it doesn't fit the place, and the circumstances also need to be considered. The circumstances mean that if you never have the time to eat on time, and always have the time to eat at the wrong time, then you need to eat more quickly but on time. Better to eat quickly but on time than slowly but at the wrong time. That's circumstances for you. Circumstances in our lives are different, but you need to know how to use them all. First, the time, then the place, and then the circumstances. So, let's talk about what time is. Time is the greatest punishing force that exists in this world. And also the greatest force that can make sure that we glide through life, that we have happiness. If a person adheres to a routine, according to the Vedas, happiness comes by itself. You don't need to wait for it or call for it. It just comes naturally, by the influence of the forces of this universe. The higher powers of the universe give us a blessing. We can learn to be happy on our own, and for this no efforts are needed, other than adhering to a daily routine. Why? Because all the forces in the universe give us the green light for performing certain actions at specific times. Each force gives its blessing at a specific time. If a person knows the secret, they can do what is necessary on time, and they get the best result out of it. You already know how this works. You need to knock at your boss's door at the right time for him to sign the papers you need. If any of you employees don't know this, then you simply shouldn't be working. You have to see your boss after lunch. You should go in 15 minutes after lunch, when he just started working. If you enter after 40 minutes, his food will start to digest, and he won't be able to think clearly. But after 15 minutes, he will be cheerful and alert. That's precisely the time you need to catch him. If you go to him about 15 minutes after lunch, he will smile and sign your papers. That's it. This is a good understanding of what time is. Likewise, a wife needs to know when to bring up bad news to her husband, after lunch, also after lunch. If she tells him before he eats, he'll devour her first, then his meal. The same will happen when a husband comes home from work. First let him take a shower. Tell him to go take a shower and then talk to him. This is a good understanding of time, what needs to be done now, what later. But we don't know this. Many people don't understand these things, and they think, why am I so unhappy? So, there is the power of the sun. This power has a huge influence. You can check how massive this influence is by this method. When you are sleeping and the sun has already crossed the horizon, keep in mind that the dawn doesn't play any role. Dawn means the angle of the sun's rise. The sun may rise at a very shallow angle, and dawn will not be visible. Look, we are on top of the ball, that is Earth. The sun passes through 4 lines on Earth. There is a top line, there is a side line. When the sun is at the level of this side line, if it is not on the equator, then the sunlight cannot reach us through the Earth. But the sun is already on the equator anyways. When the sun is on the equator, all the functions of the body change to the opposite. That is, in one person the right hemisphere becomes passive and the left active. In another, it's reversed. Everything changes to the opposite just at this moment of crossing the equator. Your moment of crossing here is at 6:20 a.m. Due to the fact that your local understanding of the zenith is slightly shifted, it happens at 6:20 a.m. for you now. If your clock is adjusted, then it will be a different time. So the sun crosses this line. Let's assume that this is the line of the horizon. At this moment, it begins to affect the psyche of a person. Below the horizon, it did not yet have such a strong effect. When it was below the horizon, it made a person want to sleep. But when it rises above the horizon at 6:20, it makes a person want to stay awake. And at this moment, the depth of sleep greatly diminishes. One starts to feel that sleep becomes shallow. Everything starts to disturb their sleep, but the desire to sleep remains. When the sun rises just a bit higher, the body starts to ache. You are trying to sleep, enjoy, relax, and the body begins to ache. That is, life energies begin to move in the body, and one can no longer just lie down. There are unpleasant pains in the spine. You start tossing and turning. You try to turn over, back and forth. You are resisting the influence of the sun. As the sun rises, the higher it climbs from the horizon, the fewer chances you have of being happy that day. We will talk about this very seriously now. So, according to the Vedic scriptures, time is an aspect of God that governs the universe. Time cyclically affects all material creation, moving it towards destruction. Time is the greatest punishing force acting in the material world. Time relentlessly punishes all who do not wish to submit to its will. It is a substance that is independent from all the other factors. It influences all kinds of material activities, yet it never comes under the influence of matter. Time is the connecting link in all the processes of material change occurring in the universe. Time is present in everything and is divided into three parts. The first part is the past. The past actually still exists, and it exists now. It hasn't gone into the past. People who think the past has gone into the past have this philosophical misconception. They say, I committed a crime in the past, and now time has passed. Why punish me? After all, I did it then, not now. Back then I was a different person. Now I'm a new person. I understand everything differently, so I shouldn't be punished. I did it in the past. One could approach this person and shoot them with a gun. And when they lie there dying, they will ask, why did you shoot me? And one can tell them, I didn't shoot you. That was in the past. It is over now. I'm not guilty because time has passed. Some people stop blaming themselves for what happened in the past. They say, it happened a long time ago, if at all. There's an ignorant saying, this happened a long time ago, if at all. Turns out the past also exists in the present. I can prove this to you in a very simple way. All a person needs to do is direct their mind to the past, and they immediately make contact with it. What is this process of contacting the past called? Remembering. When you remember something, you are making contact with an object in the past. We can only make contact with the past and read information off of it. We cannot act in the past. That's impossible. All these movies about acting in the past are impossible. The Vedas say you can only act in the present. We also cannot act in the future. But the future also exists right now in real time. Therefore, one can learn information about the future and remember information about the past. It turns out, learning information about the future is much harder than remembering the past. If someone tells you they remember their past life, it's very easy to check. Just ask them, what were you doing 3 days ago or last week? Describe it in detail. If they can't describe it in detail and forget something, they don't remember their past life. Because remembering past lives is 1,000 times harder than remembering what happened last week. Memory is the same. Recalling something that happened a week ago or in a past life is the same function. Or you can, of course, make up anything you like. Or let's say someone claims, I know your past lives. So, they remember your past lives. You should also ask them, what was I doing last week? Describe it. If they hesitate, it means they don't know. It's all very easy to check. All these are ways to extract money from people. So, the future also actually exists right now. And a person can know the future, if they have a very pure, sinless consciousness. So, time never forgives anything. The only way to avoid punishment from time is to live in step with time. There's no other way to avoid the punishment of time. Therefore, if a person can understand that time is the strongest punishing force, then they will be happy. Otherwise, not. For instance, when a close relative dies, one starts to cry intensely. Why are they crying? For two reasons. First, they didn't manage to understand in time that life is eternal, that their loved one didn't really die, and that their connection remains in the subtle energy body. They didn't grasp this. There wasn't enough time for them to understand, so they are crying. The second reason is that they left something unfinished regarding that person. They put it off for later. They didn't treat them humanely, didn't ask for forgiveness, didn't try to forgive them, didn't fulfill their duties. And then, when the time came, a crushing pain seized their entire consciousness. They don't know what to do now. You can't bring anything back, they say. It turns out time punishes us very severely, and we need to know this. I'll explain to you now, using the example of a daily routine, how this process or cycle of punishing a person by time happens. It turns out, if a person follows a morning routine, they are guaranteed a happy childhood in their next life. If a person follows a daytime routine, it means they are guaranteed a happy youth. If they follow an evening routine, it means they are guaranteed a happy old age. Because the small cycle of our life is a test, and our everyday is an exam for our future life. If we pass the test, a certain amount of points is stored in the subtle energy body of the mind. Later, this all adds up and determines how we will live further. If a person oversleeps every morning and doesn't want to get up on time, their childhood will pass in complete ignorance. If a person goes to bed late, this means they are destined to suffer in old age. If a person is lazy, doesn't do what they have to do during the daytime, this means they are destined to suffer during their youth. This is clearly described, and we can't argue with it, because a fact remains a fact. Every day is a test for our future life. Every day is like a little life. Let's start discussing the aspects of time. There are two main aspects of time that affect our consciousness. The first is the commanding aspect. It places us within certain frames of existence. An intelligent living being differs from an unintelligent one only in that the intelligent living being understands that there are frames of existence. The unintelligent one does not understand this. One can have a human body and have intelligence, yet be unintelligent. Being unintelligent means that they do not understand that everything must be done on time. They lack this knowledge. If a person thinks one should stay awake at night and sleep during the day, if one thinks you should have children at 50, and so on. If one has such ideas in their head, it means they don't understand how to live properly, and they will have big problems. One of my patients in Samara, I had just graduated from medical university, but I was already seriously studying the concept of time. I realized that there are patterns, but I didn't connect it with the Vedas. He worked as a night watchman in security. Gradually, his brain fatigue accumulated, and there came a moment when he felt very unwell. I told him that he needed to quit his night job. He said it was impossible. The pay was high. It was a military guard service job. They paid a lot. I told him he had to sleep there, at work. He replied that it was impossible, because this job required alertness. I told him that he would inevitably suffer. A couple of months later, he had a minor stroke. I treated him. He recovered. I told him to quit the job. He didn't quit. A few months later, he had a heart attack. Together with his wife, we treated him again. He recovered again. A few months later, he had a second stroke and he lost the use of one hand. One eye went blind. One leg hardly moved. Very slowly, we tried to restore him. Half a year later, he more or less recovered and again went back to his job to work the night shift. A couple of months later, he died. I used to tell him, "You shouldn't do this because you will inevitably destroy your life." But he kept doing it because he did not understand the power of time. Now, from the example of your own life, you will see that you've already been punished, almost all of you. If you do not know what a daily routine is, I will now tell you the symptoms of this punishment. You will see that you've been punished by time. These punishments are quite severe. So, the commanding aspect of time means that certain life frames are set. A person who understands this becomes happy. Those who don't understand will be unhappy. But the commanding aspect of time itself does not punish. It just sets the principles for how to live correctly. There is also the enforcing aspect of time, which does punish. The commanding aspect of time says, it's time to get up. The sun has crossed the horizon. You should already be on your feet. But a person has the right to stay in bed, to sleep. No problem. Then the enforcing aspect of time comes into play. It doesn't act immediately. It gradually destroys a person's health and happiness. How does this happen? We'll talk about it now. Before talking about the daily routine, I'd like to talk a bit about time. A person who lives in step with the time receives the following blessing, inner wealth. The first thing they receive from the power of time is an understanding of time. Understanding time means having no hope for a happy future. They understand that happiness is in the present and know that the future means aging and increasing problems. A person who understands the power of time seeks happiness now, not in the future. Such a person receives the next blessing. They understand the moment of their death. They know when they will die. This knowledge comes to them. The blessing is that they feel the moment of their death. They prepare for death. The Vedas describe the symptoms when a person is about to die. A strong loss of interest in life, a dulled perception of the world, a disappearance of taste sensation when eating. All close people suddenly seem distant. A feeling of inevitability of something arises. There is a desire to repent of all sins, and an understanding of eternity comes. When all these signs coincide, there is a likelihood that the person has only a few days left to live. There are secondary signs. The nose becomes sharply pointed, the gaze becomes vacant, facial expressions disappear, the body feels unfamiliar. This means that the person is essentially at death's door. They might be very young at this time, 25, 30 years old. Yet, within a few days, they might be struck by a car, or become ill and die quickly, and so on, meaning they have very little time left to live. A person who keeps in step with time knows the moment of their death. They feel it. I knew a young man, he was only 20 years old when he talked with me. He listed all his signs to me. I find life uninteresting. I perceive everything in some inexplicable aspect. I have no interest in food, and it seems to me that all people are far away from me. I feel eternity before me, and I want to engage only in repentance. I'm no longer interested in doing anything else. I was shocked when he listed all these facts to me. I was shocked. I didn't have the strength to tell him what it meant. I just didn't have the strength. In fact, this information is like a sentence, hence a person is not always able to say it. And a few months later, he was repairing some machinery. A part of it fell on his head, and he died instantly, at the age of 20. Another young man, about the same age, also described all these symptoms to me. He said he wanted to go to Siberia to work on a drilling rig. I told him, please don't go there. It seems like you shouldn't be there. But he was drawn there anyway, and there, a pipe fell off and he died just a month after he started working there. Thus, death comes in advance and indicates that it has arrived. But only a person who deeply respects time can understand this. Another person will not be able to comprehend it. All saints know the moment of their death. At least 2 to 3 weeks in advance they prepare for it. It turns out, a person who prepares for death can greatly change their fate. Because processes start working a bit differently in our consciousness. Life becomes more focused. So, another blessing that a person receives. Constant fear means that the person is not living in step with time. They're doing everything out of time. Fear is a feeling that comes into our consciousness because we don't feel our eternal nature. We don't understand it. We think that we are this perishable body, that death is near, that our skin is aging on our face. We look in the mirror and fear arises. We think that everything will end soon, life will stop. But the soul feels that it's different, that we live eternally, that life doesn't end. That I will feel exactly the same in my next life as I feel myself now. That's what the Vedas say. The same person, just in a different body, that's all, is the same thing. But we keep changing our bodies constantly. Who among you hasn't changed bodies in this life? Raise your hand. You haven't changed it? No? Are you sure? When you raised and lowered your hand, in that time your body was changed. Because the cells in the body are constantly changing. If you compare the body you had in childhood with the one you have now, these are completely different bodies. That one was very small, this one is big. But due to our illusion, it seems to us that we live in the same body. It's just an illusion. When a person goes to sleep, they wake up in another body. According to the Vedas, everything changes in our bodies every 7 years. Even the cells related to DNA. The atoms are completely replaced in the body. The body becomes completely different. 7 years ago, you had a completely different body. Your body has changed. However, it doesn't seem to us that we died, right? It seems we remain alive. In the same way, we don't understand that in the next life, the sensation, the feelings will be the same. The same, but in another body. Our bodies changed, but nothing changed in our life, right? We've already changed bodies many times.
Well, gradually.
And there it will be gradually too.
There, it will be suddenly.
When you go to sleep, you lie down, you wake up. Do you remember anything? Do you remember what happened in your dreams? What happened to your body? Then you wake up and you already have a different body. Death is the same thing. That's what the Vedas say. A person, so to speak, turns off, then turns on. It's like sleep. Every day we go through this. It doesn't cause us any disturbances. A person doesn't go to sleep in fear. Some do go to sleep thinking, what if I don't wake up? They fear death. They think it's a process that will bring suffering. In reality, a person who lives a sinless life will not particularly suffer at the moment of death. They will feel happiness. So fear fearlessness. Next point. There is universal time. There are years of life in the universe. There are months. 1 year in the life of the universe consists of 4 eras, just like our year. There is spring in the universe called the Golden Age. It lasts 1,728,000 years. All the population of the universe possesses 4 strongly expressed character qualities: asceticism, purity, mercy, and truthfulness. All living beings in the universe experience only happiness. On Earth, during the Golden Age, intelligent living beings, humans, live for 100,000 years. According to the Vedas, the average lifespan is 100,000 years. There are almost no diseases. Next, the Silver Age lasts 1,296,000 years. In this era, bad things begin to appear. Only purity, mercy, and truthfulness remain 3 character qualities. Living beings live for 10,000 years during this time. Next, the Bronze Age lasts 864,000 years. It is characterized by mercy and truthfulness. There is also a great decline in virtues during this era. Religiousness begins to wane. People's faith in God begins to falter. And their lifespan is about 1,000 years. During this period, Adam and Eve lived. According to the Bible, Adam lived 800 years. His followers lived 600, 400, 300 years. You can read this in the Bible, in the Old Testament. And then our Iron Age, or the Age of Degradation, begins. The second era signifies the summer of the universe. The third signifies autumn, and we are in the winter of the universe. The Age of Degradation lasts 432,000 years. On February 18th, 3102 BCE, 7 major planets, including the Sun and Moon, aligned in a straight line relative to Earth, in a strict straight line. At that moment, a new era began. It started 5,104 years ago. And it will last, as you understand, for about 427,000 years. And then there will be a natural disaster that will destroy. A partial destruction of the universe, including Earth, will occur. Half of the universe is submerged in water. When one era transitions to another, the water begins to rise for some reason. And it floods almost the entire universe, leaving only a small part of it. That's the flood they warn about. It will happen in 427,000 years. I think we won't live to see it. I mean, in this body. Let's move on to the topic of daily routine. I have a question. Where do night owls and early birds come from?
From pseudoscience.
From pseudoscience. Thank you for the good answer. From an incorrect daily routine. Early bird means someone who follows the laws of time and likes to get up early. Night owl means someone who doesn't want to get up and doesn't follow the time regime. They are punished by time. Why does a person want to wake up late and go to bed late? It's quite simple. It turns out that most people are born in the afternoon closer to evening. somewhere from 2 p.m. to 12 a.m. When a person is born at this time, they tend to go to bed late. This means that they are punished by time. The time of birth already indicates punishment by time. They did not follow the daily routine in their past life. People born from midnight to noon, especially before 6 a.m., are blessed by time. They feel like getting up early all their life. They like to get up early, and more accurately, they are made to wake up early, but that doesn't mean they get up. Some wake up and lie around and fool around, not understanding that they are ruining their lives by doing so. Fooling around means trying to lift up a drunk. We sometimes do the same thing while staying in bed. Now we're going to talk about daily routine. It turns out that the human mind and intelligence rest from 9 p.m. to 12 a.m. until 11-12 midnight. If a person goes to bed after this time, around midnight or 11:30, it means their mind cannot rest, because the mind rests only during these 2 hours. That's it, the time is over, the time has passed. And the person does not understand this. They say, well, I'll sleep now and my mind will rest, right? No, your body will rest, you'll have more life energy, but your mind won't rest. And how is mental fatigue expressed? The mind can be in a state of fatigue for a long time, even several years. Gradually, the colors of life start to fade. You feel that everything has become tasteless. You look at the world, and through your eyes, the fatigue of your mind shows. You look around and see everything in an unattractive and uninteresting way. Life used to have better colors. You feel that everything is so emotionless. Nothing delights your sight. This means the mind is tired. It requires rest. For the mind to rest, you need to go to sleep on time. A person can't force themselves, because there is a force called the desire to die. This force acts within our psyche. When a person does not strive for a higher purpose in life, they just live as they can. They say, I live as I can. They live as they can. They don't want to dedicate themselves to a higher purpose. People don't have this constant taste for happiness. They don't want to be happy. They don't pursue their happiness. In this case, they can't understand the idea that they need to go to sleep now to be happy tomorrow. They can't stop this process of tension in their head. They must cut it off. They must say, enough, I need to sleep now. Otherwise, I will have problems tomorrow. I won't be able to be happy tomorrow, one tells themselves. Such a person knows how time works. A person who doesn't know how time works says, well, the next episode of some nonsense movie, episode 555, is on. Won't I watch her go shopping? How can I go to sleep? It's a serious matter for my contemplation. So this is a very big problem. People just waste their time, which is meant for the mind to rest. It's terrible. Then, if the mind doesn't rest, what follows? First, there's brain fatigue. Then a disease appears. Since the mind controls all the organs, they start to wear out. The first to suffer is the rhythm of all organs. The rhythm of the heart starts to suffer. Now, those of you who have heart rhythm problems, think about what time you go to bed, and you'll understand why it suffers. It's all very simple. If you're going to bed on time now, it means you've really felt unwell. It means that for many years in the past, you used to go to bed late. Next, all those people who have developed very strong nervous tension, constant psychological stress, feel like smoking. Smoking often results from going to bed late. Not always, but often. Sometimes it comes from past lives, but often as a result of going to bed late. The desire to drink coffee, this habit is also linked to going to bed late. People are constantly stressed, they need to relieve it somehow, so they feel like drinking coffee. Next, severe nervousness, very strong irritability are the signs of not going to bed on time. Then diseases and immune system disorders occur. A person who goes to bed late can never be cured of autoimmune diseases. No chance. Because immunity depends on the rest of the mind. Further, disrespectful attitude towards others, strong internal negativity are linked to going to bed after 11:30 p.m. The mind won't rest at all then. Thus, there are indicators. I had an interview on a radio station in Moscow, answering questions on this topic for 2 hours. People were just telling me what their illness was, and I was telling them what time they get up, what time they go to bed, when they eat. People were simply shocked. I didn't give any other response. They asked, why don't you say anything else? I said, that's enough, because according to the Vedas, if a person starts following a daily routine, 50% of diseases go away. The other 50% are related to past karma, and you can't easily get rid of them. Thus, one must adopt serious treatment methods. But these diseases cannot be cured easily. Those that are easily treatable are treated by following a daily routine. And again, no simple treatment is needed. So not following it is just foolish. If someone doesn't sleep from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., their vital energy starts to decrease. Since we apparently don't need our brains, mind, or reason, we often go to bed after 11 p.m. But when 1 a.m. rolls around, everyone starts feeling like going to bed because their vital energy is dropping. You start feeling your vital energy is diminishing and you have less strength. One is in need of vital energy. There's no escaping it. That's why most people try to get to bed by 1 a.m. because they simply have no energy left. Watching nonsense movies can go on until morning, but there's no strength left to watch. That's it. Your eyes begin to close. The prana, the life energy, gets disrupted. So, if a person doesn't sleep from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. as a punishment of time, perhaps they used to go to bed at 1 a.m. all the time in their past life, it drains their life energy because of this. From 11 p.m. to 1 a.m., their life energy is drained, and as a result, in the next life, they cannot sleep during this time. They wake up around 11 p.m. and can't fall asleep until 1 a.m., then fall asleep again. As a result, they have no energy, constantly feeling shattered. And they don't know the reason. It feels like fate is treating them unfairly, but they don't know why. It turns out they violated their daily routine in a past life. Thus, for the functions of prana in the body to work well, a person needs to sleep from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. If someone doesn't sleep from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m., their emotional strength suffers. Emotions suffer. Imagine, if someone works at night and doesn't sleep during these hours, they suffer in every way. One says, I'll just sleep during the day, what's the problem? Let me explain the problem to you now. Look, what is sleep? Sleep replenishes the body, mind, and reason with subtle energy. It's a synthesis and accumulation of energy. Now, I have a question for you. By what force is the body replenished with subtle energy? What force compels it? We are asleep after all. We aren't doing anything, just sleeping. We aren't eating, we're doing nothing, yet the body is filled with subtle energy. Which power fills the body with subtle energy? It's the moon's power. When 9 p.m. arrives, at this time, the moon's influence begins to dominate over the sun's. And that is when a person should start to rest. Say, even if they go to bed closer to 10, they should already be resting by then. They should be wishing happiness to all, they shouldn't be working. So, around 9 p.m. the moon's influence begins. What does it do? It cools the mind. The moon cools the mind. It gives it the possibility to relax and accumulate subtle energy, called ojas. Subtle energy of ojas allows a person to accumulate a lot of energy in order to spend it later. To spend something during the day, there is the power of the sun, a force that compels you to expend energy. It gives the possibility to spend. Without the sun, it's very hard to expend energy. The sun's power increases and you feel like working during the day. At night, it's very hard to work. A person feels it's very hard to move, and all movements are forced. They force themselves. During the day, there's no need to force oneself. From around 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., the energy naturally emanates from the person. They want to work. The sun extracts energy from us during this time. What happens to a person who sleeps during the day? Energy is extracted from them, not synthesized. Daytime sleep doesn't help rest. A person wakes up shattered, thus one accumulates their mental fatigue. Later people wonder, why did they have a heart attack? What's the reason? Violation of the daily routine, improper relationship with the sun. So why do those scoundrels make us work at night? Because you work at night. If there are people who agree to work, then someone will be there to make them. If people knew it was harmful, nobody would do it. In Vedic times, when the last ray of the sun disappeared below the horizon, even battles would stop. A soldier who was about to strike at the moment the last sun ray vanished, if he used his weapon at that moment, he would descend to lower planets. He had to stop. And they did so. They couldn't continue fighting. They stopped the battle and dispersed to their camps. That was in times of Vedic culture. According to Vedic scriptures, that's how battles were conducted. They slept at night and then fought during the day. Nowadays, they fight at night and sleep during the day to recover from hangovers. Now you should know that the holier a person is, the less sleep they need, because sleep is needed for rest. A person who lives in love and harmony with the surrounding world does not get tired. Therefore, they do not need to rest. A sign of holiness is that a person can sleep for 3 hours and then be alert, happy, and very productive. They are healthy people. 3 hours is enough for maintaining life. This means that they are saints. If they feel heavy somehow, have some problems, it means it's just a punishment by time. They simply can't sleep more. The saints can sleep more, but they do not want to. 3 hours is enough. 2 hours indicate even a more saintly person. 500 years ago, 6 saints lived in a holy place in India who didn't sleep at all. They had no need to sleep. They were absolutely sane, sinless people. They imparted great spiritual knowledge to the world. They didn't need to sleep. They ate just half a cup of yogurt a day. That's all. They didn't need more food. But this doesn't mean we should do the same. We don't have that capability. Thus, the daily routine is different for each category of people. Children need more sleep. Until the age of 14, a person is not influenced by karma. They aren't subjected to punishment by time. Therefore, children can eat when they want, whatever they want. But since they are already in a human body, they shouldn't eat meat if they want a good fate. They can eat any food at any time, because in a child's body, everything will be fine. There won't be any problems. As soon as puberty begins, a person must immediately start living according to time. At the age of 14-15, a child needs 8 hours of sleep. They should go to bed at 9 p.m. and get up around 5-6 a.m. They need 8 hours of sleep. Adults, and mostly all people sitting in this room, are in passion, as we learned from the last lecture. Therefore, basically, everyone needs about 7 hours of sleep. That means you should go to bed around 10 p.m. and wake up at 5 a.m. This is the most optimal daily routine for those who are in their middle ages here. Elderly people should sleep only about 6 or 5 hours, no more. So, the need for sleep decreases with age, the necessity of sleep reduces as one ages. According to the Vedas, a person who wakes up at 3 a.m. does so only for one purpose, to engage in spiritual practices. Only a sufficiently spiritually advanced person can wake up at this time. Other people, if they wake up at this time, will lose their health. A person who wakes up from 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. can grasp the deepest secrets that exist in this world. They are capable of doing so. This understanding occurs specifically in this time frame from 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. If a person wakes up from 4 a.m. to 5 a.m., it means they are capable of leading others. They are capable of being very advanced people, very joyful, capable of overcoming themselves and all life's difficulties, achieving great success not only spiritually but also materially, if they wake up from 4 to 5 a.m. If someone wakes up from 5 a.m. to 6 a.m., they will at least achieve their goals in life. They won't achieve great results in life, but at least they won't suffer greatly nor fall ill often. They will manage well in life. Meaning, they won't have major problems, but they won't reach anything profound in life. A person who wakes up from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., for such a person, that ship has sailed. Because if the ship has sailed, you can't jump on it anymore, right? Similarly with the sun. You see, I'm giving you this comparison. The Vedas say that the sun is our guide in life. It teaches us how to live properly. It does this in such a way. The sun has 3 types of energy that affect our consciousness. The first type of energy, solar quanta that burn the skin, causing us so many problems. Therefore, we think the sun is harmful to health. The second type of solar energy acts on a subtle energy level. It influences our subtle energy body and the physical body as well. This type of solar energy is called the element of fire. It acts by penetrating directly inside and causes our digestive fire, immunity, and so forth. We know everyone eats at 12 noon. This is lunch all over the world because the sun is at its zenith. At this time, the second type of solar energy is most active within us, making us very hungry due to the increased fiery power in our stomach. And people also think better then, meaning mental activity greatly increases at this time. Next, the third type of solar energy is called joy, the power of joy or optimism. This type of solar energy can only be received if one wakes up on time. I can give you a very simple proof of this. Until what time do birds sing loudly? Until 6 a.m. Then they gradually quiet down. They sing from 4 to 6 a.m., even if there's no sun. Even if the sun hasn't risen above the horizon yet, like in winter. Here in winter, birds don't sing because it's cold. But, say, in India, the sun also rises late, after 6 a.m. in winter, but birds start singing at 4 a.m. Similarly, the roosters, for instance, whether it's cold or warm, they are in the coop. They start crowing when? At 3 a.m., when it's time for the first people, the saints, to wake up. When do they crow for the second time? At 4 a.m. The third time, until 6 a.m., around 5 a.m., 5:30. And the fourth time, no one counts, because it's not interesting. According to the Vedas, the 3 crows of a rooster are important. The rest is not counted because the fourth crowing happens after 6 a.m., and it means the ship has sailed. Thus, a person who wakes up from 6 to 7 a.m. loses the opportunity to be perky. People who wake up from 6 to 7 a.m. experience some decrease in energy. They may have chronic illnesses which are very hard for them to treat. They feel like they are always behind, always late, unable to accomplish what they want in life. These people nevertheless somehow still try to cope with life. Those who wake up from 8 to 9 a.m. already have stable chronic diseases, constant reduced energy. That means they may experience dizziness or high blood pressure. They definitely won't have enough energy. They feel internal lethargy, nausea, dizziness. Without coffee, life is impossible for them if they wake up from 8 to 9 a.m. They can't do without coffee. These people experience mental weakness, a tendency towards depression, and don't believe in their own strength. Because belief in one's strength comes from the sun. The sun gives strength, and belief in that strength also comes from the sun. If a person wakes up before 6 a.m., they gain faith in both their mental and physical abilities. A person won't have faith that they can cope with life if they wake up from 8 to 9 in the morning. If a person wakes up from 9 to 10 in the morning, they become susceptible to accidents. Their life may end prematurely. Premature death means they continue to live in the same place after death, but in their subtle energy body. And only later, when the time comes, they leave that place. Leaving the place of your life is impossible until the designated time comes. So they remain there in the form of a ghost. Premature death is only possible if a person in this or their past life woke up later than 9 in the morning. Very late. What time is on the opposite side of the clock from 9 in the morning? 3 in the afternoon. 9 in the morning is the deadline for waking up. That's it. Life won't be any good if you wake up beyond that point. Even at 6 a.m. it is too late. 3 in the afternoon is the deadline for having lunch. If a person eats at 3, it means they will never be happy again. The right time has passed, for good. 3 in the afternoon is already very late. I'm not even talking about getting out of bed at 11. Then, schizophrenia is guaranteed. My hang glider carries me, my hang glider. As the song goes, life will be like flying with a hang glider. We'll all be flying with a hang glider. It will be madness. In this case, a person understands nothing. They constantly stick to their own opinion. They have a very selfish consciousness. They can't listen to anyone, they are very stubborn, and that means deep degradation. A person who wakes up so late is unable to grasp the truth. The Vedas say that in order to grasp the truth, change one's karma for the better, a person must always wake up before 6 in the morning. Changing one's karma or influencing one's fate for those who wake up after 6 in the morning is impossible, because the power of the sun, called joy or optimism, is the one that burns bad karma. This song called Morning Greets Us with Coolness is exactly about this kind of power. Solar energy comes from this song. The energy of joy comes from this song. A person who wakes up before 6 in the morning should immediately take a shower, because it is considered that when a person sleeps, their brain is in degradation, their mind is in degradation, so they must remove the power of ignorance from themselves. Therefore, early in the morning, it is necessary to take a cool shower and rinse your head. Otherwise, you'll have no happiness in life, according to Vedic knowledge. Women don't have to get their hair wet every day. They can wash their hair twice a week. Therefore, it's best for women to get into the shower wearing a shower cap so that water falls on their heads and flows away. You might ask, why pour water over your head at all in this case? Contact with water removes impurities from the subtle energy body of the mind. And the subtle energy body of the mind is everywhere within us. It is also present above the surface of our physical body. That's why a person who washes their head cleanses their mind. It's very important to know this. Let's say you have depression. Depression means befoulment of the mind. If you simply wake up before 6 in the morning and rinse your body and your head, 60 to 70% of the depression will subside on its own. Life will become easier just from that. Moving on. Breakfast can be eaten from 6 to 7 in the morning. This is the best time for breakfast. When it's 6 o'clock in the morning, the sun rises above the horizon, and at this time, life energy begins to move. Did you know that at this time the wind usually picks up? Someone who lives in a village often likes to wake up early, before sunrise. They go for a walk and notice at some point that the wind suddenly starts blowing. Everything was quiet and then the wind started blowing strongly. This movement of the wind means that the sun has crossed the horizon. Life began its movement. And the subtle energy of the air also starts moving in our abdomen. The intestines are linked to activity, so it moves the fastest in the intestines. And you get sort of a feeling of vacuum under your stomach. It feels as if it were sucking on itself. This means the intestines are contracting. It doesn't mean hunger, it means our psyche is overstimulated at this time. If a person is not in pure goodness, then they should have breakfast in the mornings. If the force of pure goodness is present, there's so much happiness in the morning that one hardly feels like eating. It's enough for a person to eat only once a day. But if they are not in pure goodness yet, they feel this vacuum in the morning. People in degradation don't feel this vacuum in the morning either. It's before bedtime that they feel it. So a person who feels this vacuum in their abdomen in the morning should eat at that time. What should they eat? They should eat foods that are in the state of pure goodness. Morning is the time of happiness. They should support the energy of happiness within themselves. And then the diseases associated with low tone, low immunity, depression, reduced function of various organs, dystrophies, low activity, and so on will all be treated in this way. Nothing more needs to be done. There's no need to take some super exclusive medicine, because it won't help if you're having breakfast at the wrong time. But the common foods that I'm about to mention will give you the opportunity to be healthy in this regard. So, all fruits are in pure goodness. Particularly fruits like dates, bananas, figs are considered very pure. Apples belong to a slightly different category. You can also include berries, cherries, plums. Mangoes as well are strongly influenced by pure goodness, although they don't grow here. All these fruits should be eaten early in the morning. In the winter and autumn, eat them dried, and in the spring and summer, you can have them fresh if available, if it's possible. For those with very weak digestion, it's always better to eat fruits dried, both in winter and summer, both in winter and in summer. During this time, you should drink sweetened kefir. And at this time, you also need to eat sugar, honey. Sugar isn't harmful at this time. Sugar isn't a harmful product. It gives a person a feeling of happiness. It's not a harmful product if consumed from 6 to 8 in the morning. Even a person with diabetes won't experience problems if they eat sugar at this time, because at this time, sugar is completely absorbed. It is influenced by the moon. Sugar absorption is under the influence of the moon. But when a person eats sugar late in the evening, then the body becomes overexcited, and the lunar power begins to harm the person. A person becomes very tense. This leads to intoxication of the body. If one eats sugar from 6 to 8 in the morning, the power of the moon weakens at that time, but it still manages to help you digest everything. Sugar gets digested very quickly. It is absorbed quickly by the cells. This way, a person receives subtle energy from sugar early in the morning. There are 3 types of kefir. Kefir in pure goodness, kefir in passion, and the kind that is better avoided. When kefir sours by itself, it turns into klabber. This is the type of kefir that is better not used. However, you can use it for baking bread. All types of kefir sold in stores are influenced by the state of passion, but even so, it is already good. Even if it's store-bought kefir, it's still good in the morning. It will work well. However, if you want really good kefir, you should find homemade natural sour cream. Or in some stores, you can find such sour cream that hasn't been sterilized, and the bacteria that ferment it, create the souring process, are still present in it. Take 1 or 2 tablespoons of this natural sour cream for 3 liters of milk. First, you need to warm up the milk. You should warm it up in the evening. Then cool it to a temperature that your finger can tolerate and it's not hot. Add the cream and stir it. And then cover it with something very warm so it sits all night. In the morning you'll see it's not kefir but some interesting substance. It resembles the sour cream that was sold during the Soviet era. You'll see that it looks like sour cream but just a bit thinner, and it has a very bland, much less sour taste. This is exactly the substance you should consume, meaning it's in pure goodness. Bacteria ferment the milk and it turns into something resembling sour cream. Pure goodness bacteria develop by themselves in a fatty environment. This culture develops in the sour cream automatically, in a very fatty environment. The less fat kefir contains, the more bacteria in the state of passions develop in it. Fermenting with kefir grains also belongs to the state of passion. It's meant only for treatment. You shouldn't consume it regularly because it overstimulates the body. First, you get regular milk, better if it's full fat, not skimmed. Second option, take ryazhenka or baked milk and use it for fermentation instead. A couple of spoons. The taste will be similar to ryazhenka. You get a very bland kefir. It tastes almost like ryazhenka. So mix it with sugar and eat it. With fresh fruits, all together, no problem. Everything will be digested very well. Add sweet spices to it too. All sweet spices are suitable. Cinnamon, cardamom, you can add a bit of licorice. Licorice is also considered a spice in the East. Licorice root is sold in pharmacies. Barberry is a spice too. Cardamom, fennel, cumin, anise. These are all sweet spices. You can use them early in the morning. If you have hard work ahead, then eat nuts in the morning with this food. Early in the morning, you shouldn't do physical labor. According to the Vedas, this time is meant for enhancing your knowledge. But if you can't avoid working during this time, you can eat nuts, you can eat sour cream. And at this time, you can eat buckwheat. From all the grains, only buckwheat, and that's all. And then your health, your strength will be preserved, and you will be a happy person. Happiness will overflow. You will find great joy in life. There are some people present here who attended my lecture a year ago. Those of you who have done this every day, followed my advice, raise your hand, but be honest, please. Are there such people here? Well, tell me, has your life become happier because of this? Well, do you see now? Try it for yourself. You'll see, it's true, it works. And do you follow it? I remember you. You always ask questions. Then why didn't you raise your hand?
I eat cheese and butter.
Well, it doesn't matter. Anyway, you don't eat grains in the morning. You can have cheese in the morning, you can have butter, you can eat cottage cheese, but it's risky to eat cottage cheese in winter. It's better to eat regular cheese in the winter. In the summer, you can eat cottage cheese. That's all. Let's move on. It's a broad topic and there's little time. So it's important to know that when a person eats in this way, they feel joyful, want to laugh, and there's no dullness of mind after eating at all. That means the stomachache passes and they will have plenty of energy for work and so on. If a person eats grains, and I'm not even talking about meat, I don't consider meat to be proper food. Meat, fish, eggs, I do not consider them food, because these are the products that destroy all kinds of happiness in a person, so I do not think they should be consumed. You might think otherwise. That's your prerogative. You can check their effect on your own life. I have already verified this with many people's lives, so I don't need to test it on myself. It's also described in the Vedas. So, if a person eats grains in the morning from 6 a.m. to 8 or 9 a.m., this means the following. Grains are intended to give strength to the mind, mental energy. And it's also a kind of food that requires a lot of fire for digestion. When a person eats grains in the morning, the fiery energy of the mind is taken away by this food, about 40 minutes after eating. As a result, about 40 minutes after eating, a person experiences 3 symptoms that you can feel for yourself if you eat grains at this time. About 40 minutes after a meal, the mind becomes completely dull. All the energy leaves the mind. For example, if a person is reading something, they start reading the same line over and over again, about 15 times. They don't realize they should stop reading because they understand nothing. They don't even realize that. They just keep reading the same line like this, their mind gets completely stuck on it. The next symptom, when a person has eaten a lot, they start to doze off. Because there's no longer enough strength, muscular energy, the fiery energy starts moving from the muscles to the stomach, so the muscles lose strength. The person immediately falls asleep, they just shut down. And the last symptom, when a person has eaten a lot, their brain completely slows down and they start drooling. This drooling then stains the book this person was reading. If you see a yellowish spot at the bottom of someone's book, you can say, you probably indulge in too many grains in the morning, right? You can declare the results of your investigation to them like Sherlock Holmes. It will work 100%, you'll guess right. So, for a person who eats grains early in the morning, here's what happens next. Since the food can't be digested at this time, there isn't enough digestive fire, the intestines start working very actively. It affects the mind in such a way that the person enters a state of strong passion, starts rushing about, and has no control of their brain. They get nervous, angry, freak out, and experience very strong tension. The food starts to push through completely undigested. Normally, digestion takes 6 hours. We need 6 hours to digest the food we ate. When a person eats in the morning around 7-8 a.m., they get very hungry around 2 p.m., but before that, they don't feel hungry. Because some of the food still remains in the intestines and it is being digested. Very little food starts being digested around 11. And therefore the body is not demanding more food. It already has something to digest. And at about 2 p.m. hunger sets in, but the ship of eating lunch at a proper time has already sailed, and the person eats at 2 p.m. And after that, such dullness sets in that they will need to rest for about 1.5 to 2 hours. Even if they are working at this time, they will be absolutely brainless. So a person loses at least 3 hours a day from such eating habits. 3 hours of precious time of their life. We already lose 7 to 8 hours to sleep every day, and now another 3 on top. As a result, we take a lot of time away from our lives. If a person eats at 11 a.m., from 11 to 12, they only need to rest for 10 minutes, and they're energetic, happy, healthy. And some people don't even need to rest at all. They can eat a lot, get as full as they want, and everything will be digested. Such a person will not experience hunger at least until 6 p.m. For instance, I don't feel hungry until late at night if I eat at that time. But if I eat later, then I get hungry again in the evening. This phenomenon is astonishing. It saves us both food and money. As a famous Russian comic says, don't work for the toilet. Because a person is essentially working for the toilet, they are feeding the toilet. Because the food is not being digested. If a person eats at 2 p.m., that's it. The sun is on the course to sunset. The food is not being properly digested, leading to vitamin deficiency. What is vitamin deficiency? It's when a person does not eat at a proper time. According to Ayurveda, vitamins are absorbed last in the body. Therefore, a person must eat on time so the vitamins can be absorbed. If a person eats from 11 to 12, vitamins start to be absorbed around 6-7 p.m. If they eat at 2 p.m., when will they be absorbed? The sun is setting, the food is not being digested, it just sits in the stomach. That's it. It starts to push forward through the intestine again because it's not absorbed, it's just pushed through. And in the evening, you feel like eating again. This way, we end up having 3 meals a day. As a result, a person eats again, experiences strong hunger at 7 or 8 p.m. and overeats in the evening. And all those grains they eat around 6-7 p.m., bread, corn, legumes, whole grain and white bread, rice, all these grains turn into toxins. How does body intoxication manifest in the morning? Severe weakness, feeling like there was no rest at night. The person can't get out of bed. In their head, they are getting up, going to the bathroom, opening the door, entering the bathroom, and then they look and see that they are still in bed, and this can happen many times. And when they try to get up, they feel a strong weakness in the stomach area. Only when the sun crosses the horizon and moves a bit above it can they finally get up, because yesterday's food begins to digest with the weak sunlight, so they can now get up, but the ship has sailed. That's how we live. The main reason for the formation of phosphate stones in the kidneys is the consumption of grains late in the day. How to treat phosphate stones? If you consume grains after 2 o'clock in the afternoon, there's no chance to cure phosphate stones in the kidneys because they form due to this. Doctors have come to the conclusion that bread is actually harmful food. These doctors don't seem to be using their brains, so for them it must be harmful. In reality, grains are the only food that enhances brain activity. Our ability to think depends on grains. Grains support the strength of thinking. You can think without grains too, but the strength of thinking is subtle energy. When a person needs to work, interact with people, their mind must be very strong to stand their ground. This mental strength to prove one's point comes from grains. Remember this. It can also come from meat, but in that case the person is in the position of a bully. They prove their point from an aggressive stance, not from a position of pure goodness, not from happiness, but from hatred. They get angry at everyone and think, why don't people love me? I'm good on the inside. Lunchtime is when one should eat all the food cooked in oil. It's best to cook food in clarified butter. If you want to use vegetable oil, it's best to add it after cooking. If you cook with vegetable oil, if it's too expensive to use butter, then at least you shouldn't cook twice in the same vegetable oil. And it's best not to fry food in vegetable oil, but to stew it. Until 6 a.m., it's best to engage in spiritual practices, meditation. The best time for prayer is before 5 in the morning, or at least until 6. From 6 to 7 is the best time for learning and memorization. This is the time when the sun is in harmony with the moon. Memory depends on the effects of the moon and the sun. The sun gives sharpness to memory, while the moon gives retention. Therefore, from 7 to 8 are the most effective times for rote memorization. Even a person with very weak memory can memorize a lot from 6 to 7 in the morning. They can memorize anything, and it will be well retained in their memory. If a person wants to not only memorize, but also to internalize the information, they should do this from 7 to 8 in the morning. From 8 to 9 a.m. is the best time for logical thinking. So during this hour, a person should be memorizing and thinking logically. From 9 to 10 a.m., it's best to start working with statistics, documents, and related tasks. From 10 to 11 a.m., the capacity for intellectual labor decreases significantly because the sun is high. Therefore, at this time, one can browse, review, manage, and so on. The process of learning ends by 11 a.m. This is just the right time to sit down and have lunch. From noon to 6 p.m. is the time for active physical labor or active mental labor, management, business, and so on. During this time, these activities can be performed much better than at any other time. From 6 p.m., a person should step away from work. They should calm down. They should listen to something interesting, pleasant, say, my lectures. It would be better, of course, to listen to them in the morning or during the day, but we don't have such an opportunity, such is life. From 6 p.m. you can eat at any time really, even at night. The question is, what can you eat? We will distribute handouts on what foods to eat at what times. After 9 p.m. you can only have fresh milk, heated to boiling or near boiling temperature. After 3 a.m. milk should be consumed cool or cold, not hot. But in winter you can also drink it hot. At night you can drink as much milk as you want. If you feel hungry at night, drink some milk. You shouldn't eat anything else at night. Milk is only digested at night, and it provides a lot of health benefits. There will be a special lecture on this. Therefore, our scientists believe that milk is indigestible and harmful to health because they don't know how it should be consumed. Milk is associated with the moon's power and is digested under the moon's influence. Children are also linked to the moon. Women are more connected to the moon, so milk is better digested by women than men. But in the evening, it digests well for everyone equally. From 6 to 9 p.m., you can eat vegetables, because from 6 p.m., the influence of the moon begins, and vegetables are digested under the moon's influence, so they won't cause digestive issues at night. Vegetables that grow above the ground, except for tomatoes, are especially good in the evening. These include zucchini, pumpkins, and so on. Vegetables that grow underground are worse to eat in the evening because they are connected not only to the moon's energy, but also to the earth's energy. When a person eats root vegetables at night, they might attract spirits into their mind because spirits are also connected to the earth's energy and they may have cosmic dreams.
Why can't we eat tomatoes?
Tomatoes should not be eaten in the evening because they possess a bright, fiery energy. They ripen under the influence of the sun. Technically, tomatoes are a fruit, a berry, if you think about it. All other vegetables ripen under the influence of the moon at night.
What about cabbage, cucumbers, potatoes?
Cabbage and cucumbers can also be eaten in the evening. Potatoes, being an underground vegetable, are better not eaten in the evening. Watermelon is not a vegetable. It's a berry and should be eaten during the day. Okay, there will be a special lecture on this topic. So the evening is meant for a person to step back from work. If a person works late, they experience strong mental tension, and it also damages their body. A person's mind can work up to 3 times faster until 6 a.m. compared to the evening. Therefore, if you can't finish something in the evening, you should postpone it until morning, as morning is a more productive time, and you will do it 3 times faster. Provided you take a shower and wash away the force of sleep.
A warm shower?
The shower should be cool, but if a person is usually very cold, for example, if they have polyarthritis, then a warm one. When to do exercises? The best time for active exercises is from 7 to 9 a.m. That's the best time. If you do relaxation exercises, then it's okay to do them in the evening. After work, it's best to take a warm shower. Never take a cold shower in the evening. It's very harmful to your health. Never watch TV before sleep, because when a person watches TV before sleep, they cannot shake off the impressions that come from it, and they'll spend the whole night replaying the film reel in their head. A person should set themselves up 3 times a day. Early in the morning, you should pray and wish everyone happiness to make your day successful. If a person doesn't believe in God, they should at least spend 40 minutes continuously wishing happiness for everyone, repeating, "I wish everyone happiness." If they believe in God, they should spend at least 40 minutes praying in the morning. In the evening, a person should wish everyone happiness, and they should do this before meals, at lunch, to set themselves up for the right mood during the meal. If a person acts in this way, they achieve happiness. It doesn't take a lot of time. You can do this alongside other activities, but it's better to focus for some time, doing so for at least a few minutes a day.